I usually trim it too short. Bear with me a second here. I'm trying to get this.
Okay. No worries.
Trying to get my camera angle.
Yeah. While you do that, I'll welcome everybody to the Jeet Kune Dialogues episode number 305, which came about just because my friend Zane Isaacs, I think, is one of the more reasonable and level-headed people out there in the Jeet Kune world. And I'm afraid to say it. I think he's reasonable and level-headed because he doesn't push the Jeet Kune mantle on an everyday basis. What would you say to that?
I really don't. And that probably is it. I no longer have a dog in the fight. I guess you could say. So
well, wait, what do you mean? Did you feel like you did at some point? Like you did have a dog in the fight?
I think so. I think I was listening to some voices that were and it wasn't Rodney. I think I was listening to some voices that were steering me in a divisive kind of direction as far as between the camps or whatever. And I didn't have very much information other than just kind of what I overheard or would hear from different people.
All right. Well, you mentioned the name Rodney, so give people the background. Tell them who Rodney is and your background and what have you.
Rodney Hitchcock is out of Waldron, Arkansas. He's an instructor under Ted Wong. He trained on the seminar circuit with Guru Dan and others, I believe, but I don't know that I could name names. But Guru Inosanto was one of them. And then saw, I believe, an ad in Black Belt magazine in the early 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
For a Ted Wong seminar in Tulsa or Oklahoma City or Dallas or somewhere like that. And went and attended and changed everything after that. It just changed his life. The first time he saw, it wasn't so much seeing Ted move. It was what he was saying, and what he was showing, and the science behind it. If you, am I mistaken, Dwight? Have you trained Ted a bit?
Yes. Too? Twice. Once in Miami, and then maybe even once or twice in LA.
Okay.
Yeah. So my wanted to. I mean, I'm partial to Cass Magna because he's my favorite Jeet Kune Do senior, but I think he when he talks about Ted Wong, he does it the best. He says that there's a couple of things he says about Ted Wong. The first thing he says in his interview is Ted Wong, from below the neck, looked just like Bruce Lee, moved just like Bruce Lee moved. And I can attest to that because when I saw him here in Miami, I was like, wow, this guy floats on air with his footwork, right? And then the other thing that he said about Ted Wong is that even into his 60s, he was still doing road work. And he said the reason why is because Bruce Lee set the standard for physical conditioning, and he wanted to maintain that to the best of his ability.
Right.
So that reported speech, but also my empirical experience of Ted Wong was that he's definitely onto something, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah, he was always very physically fit, and the times that he would dabble into grappling or anti-grappling or whatever you want to call it. The times that didn't happen, according to some people, they're figment of my imagination, perhaps. But
Right.
you would grab a hold of Ted, and it was like grabbing a hold of a piece of oak. The guy was he was not a big man, but he was rock solid and super
Right.
strong. Super strong. I
Yeah.
generally outweighed him by 20, 30, probably upwards of 40 pounds at times. And he was always significantly stronger than me. I mean, he felt significantly stronger than me.
Yeah.
And if you got the privilege of holding pads for you, man, you better not do it, because he'll rip your arms out of socket. Man,
Right.
the guy could crack.
Yeah. Yeah. So when I was setting up the postcard for our talk here, and I was looking around at for images, from your websites and what have you. Your I would say your website is almost completely different from the Facebook page. Is that by design? It doesn't. There's something about it that one doesn't seem to feed into the other. Am I wrong about that?
No, I wouldn't say so. Honestly, it's a technical issue that I have with my website. They've particularly here recently updated my website, and when they do, they generally, for whatever reasons, tend to lose some of my personal photos and revert
Ah,
back to stock photos of people in gis and kimonos and whatnot.
right.
Um,
Yeah. I hate that. I hate that.
yeah, yeah, very annoying, because the championship brand is a very specific.
Right.
It's a very specific, well thought out thing, and uh, so I would like the website to reflect that, but at the moment it
Mhm.
definitely doesn't.
Yeah. Well, I think that's something that school owners are always going to have to deal with. Do you do it all yourself? Do you give it out to another party, and then you are tied to whatever it is that they put up for you? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
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 And it's
How
definitely
so?
not something that I can do myself. Even the Facebook page, like the back panel of Facebook,
Mhm.
trying to advertise and stuff like that, it's completely outrun my sophistication, and my ability to keep up with it. Even when I watch a tutorial or something like that on YouTube about how to use the new back panel,
Right.
um, 3 months later, it's completely unrecognizable. 100% by design, I'm sure.
um, so, tell me a little bit about what it's like running a full time school in 2024.
Um, well, in a word, it's awesome. I get to do this for a living. It's the only thing I am particularly good at. It's the thing I'm most interested in.
Right.
So that's in a word, it's awesome. It's yeah, I feel a big sense of responsibility. Uh, so there's that. I feel a big sense of responsibility. I feel a big sense of I'm not I can search for the word for it, but these I have about 50 kids in the program spread out amongst uh, two different groups, beginners and intermediate and advanced.
Right.
And these parents come and trust me with their children. Now they're present. It's not like it's not watching, but still with their kids to teach them violence, and to teach them how to practice and train violence on each other.
Yeah.
Um, it's heavily supervised, and it's as safe as possible, but it's a rough and tumble. It's mixed martial arts, so we're punching, kicking, elbows and knees. We're taking each other down, we're sprawling on each other, we're choking each other, arm bars, etc.
Right.
So doing it as safe as possible, but it's tough. I've never had a serious injury or anything like that, particularly not during sparring.
Yeah.
But still, these parents are. It's not only that, Dwight. They're allowing me to yell at their kids. That's one of the main things
Right. Yeah.
that surprises me. My parents. I've got several parents who want me to make T-shirts that say "Nobody cares about your thoughts and emotions." You know, some of my more popular or unpopular at times, depending on the parents'
Right.
taglines. I've heard a little bit of resistance to that one. Well, I care about little Johnny's thoughts and emotions. Well, you're alone because nobody else does, and everybody
Yeah.
needs to get used to it.
My sense of your sense of responsibility is predominantly or primarily to the little ones and to the women.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm currently planning a women's self-defense seminar for next month.
Mhm.
And
Is
yeah,
that an
I'm
annual
always
thing?
trying. Yeah, it is. I try to do it annually. But yeah, working very hard to introduce the kids to some realities that parents won't give them, and schools are not allowed to give them.
Right.
Things
Yeah.
like, "Hey, nobody cares. Shut up. Get to work." Hey
Mhm.
guys, listen. When I'm talking, I talk and you shut up.
Yeah.
Right? I say it just like that because
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer. If nobody's ever told you, nobody as a child, right? Nobody ever, hey, what you're saying is nonsense. Nobody cares about it. You're being annoying. Shut up. You need to hear that. You
Did you
need to hear
need
that from
did
somebody you
you
respect. You need to hear
did
it.
you need to hear that when you were younger?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
Is
think everybody does. I think
it
everybody needs to
no,
find out eventually that you're not the center of the universe, and the
right.
sooner the better.
But isn't it funny how when you get put in a position of responsibility, you develop the ability to look back and go, God damn it, I needed this back then, right?
I definitely did. Yeah, I definitely did. My parents weren't softies by any stretch of the imagination, um, but I try to thread the needle between um, what my mom was, which was very, very nurturing,
Mhm.
and very, very. She was soft on crime, uh, and my dad, who was, let's call him, volatile and unpredictable. His
Mhm.
level of discipline depended very much on his mood at any given moment. And like probably most of us martial artists, you could say I come from kind of a colorful childhood or whatever. Dad and
Right.
I didn't get along,
Yeah.
so. Um, but anyway, yeah, it's a big responsibility to be. I supervise every Saturday sparring day. And these little
Mhm.
kids from 5 years old and up, they get out and punch each other in the face, and kick each other, and roll around and strangle each other, and that's a big responsibility for a person. And I've got some
Right.
great assistant instructors out there helping.
Is your sense of responsibility again, because from looking at the pictures and what have you, I gather you're a dad of two girls at least.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Well, then
yeah.
that explains it all, Zane.
Mhm.
That explains it all. The emphasis on developing kids, and then the emphasis on women learning to protect themselves.
Right. I'm very passionate about that. I'm very passionate about the champs. Champs is a many things, but it's an acronym. Champs, confidence slash compassion. I believe there's a very strong relationship between confidence and compassion. Um, Jordan Peterson says, if you're not capable of violence, you're not kind. You're just useless. I think
Mm-hmm.
I'm paraphrasing,
Mm-hmm.
but and I'm a strong believer in that. I think you need to be, in order to truly become compassionate, you need to be confident and you need to be capable. So we talk about a lot about that in the class: humility, attitude, mental toughness, personal responsibility, self-discipline, champs.
Right.
So we
I
have
like.
regular mat chats. If you scoped around us, snooped around on the Facebook page, you probably saw. I used to post a lot of pictures of the little circles where we do our mat chats. I've gotten into, excuse me, I've gotten into video more here lately because that seems to be more popular.
Oh yeah, yeah. When it comes to social media, I think it's safe to say that video is king. You know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
And trying to get what you want to get across in literally 5 to 8 seconds has been
Right.
the real challenge.
Yep.
Because I would
Yep.
like to get kind of a story told a little bit in a video. Did you see the video about the little girl that I posted, who was very, very timid when she came to the class? And there's a video of her, pretty rough and tumble sparring
Yeah.
with one of the boys in the class.
No, I don't think I no,
Um,
I don't think I saw that one.
well,
But
um,
I have seen your sparring stuff. And but go ahead and tell us the story about the little girl.
there's the point of it was, just trying to. I can't remember what the point of it was now. Dwight, I brought that up for a reason. The telling a story. The story about here's a story about a little girl. We all, if you have a daughter, or especially if you have more than one daughter, you very likely have a daughter who's afraid of her own shadow, right?
Mm-hmm.
At
Mm-hmm.
least one of them is going to be, women are more agreeable,
Even
right?
even if they're twins.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you've got
Yeah.
one who is, some girls are not so, right. Some girls are pretty disagreeable right out of the box, and I've got a few of those, but for the most part the girls that I get are varying levels of little sweethearts.
Right.
And this girl um was just an absolute cupcake, and I don't think I heard her speak for 6 or 8 months in the program, just afraid of her own shadow. And now she's made green belt, which in my program, a green belt, that's, there's a couple of stripes there on a green belt, and then you go to blue belt. Well, blue belt is, um, you've developed a pretty serious amount of technical proficiency at blue belt. In
Right.
my opinion, in my program, um, you should be able to go to a jiu-jitsu tournament and be competitive at blue belt level in my program.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's not really fair. Not really fair, because we spend, of course, a lot of time doing things that you can't do in a BJJ tournament.
Yeah.
There's the rules, et cetera, et cetera. So there's that, and then plus there's things like leg locks that are allowed in tournaments. I really don't mess with leg locks very much, because from a self defense perspective, the juice is not really worth the squeeze
Right.
for the most part.
Yeah.
Um, But so anyway, green belt, you have to be able to fight to get a green belt from me. If you can be as technically proficient as all get out, but if you can't crack an egg, no green belt.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
anyway, this little girl's a green
I'm
belt, and she's a tough little
right.
sucker now.
um, so like I was telling people at the beginning, I posted something, you commented on it. I referred to you as like one of the most enjoyable JKD people to talk to, and then we just decided to do this. So there's like no agenda or what have you. And so we're flying here to LA, and I'm thinking, Dwight, you're gonna wing it 100%, or will you at least think about something to ask Zane? So I actually have. Right, I actually
Cool.
ended up with just a few lines here. So one of them was, what is it here? is there a differentiation between training for self-defense and training for competition? I wanted to get your explanation of that. How at your school, right? How do you differentiate between the training for competition and training for self-defense?
I personally think there should be a pretty good contrast, but I think there are so many parallels. I tend to disagree with both camps of people who think that they go get a competition, a blue belt or whatever belt at a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school, and then think that they're going to be able to defend themselves in a self-defense situation handily against, I don't know, probably at least half of the people I see in video. I'm a violence nerd. I love watching street fights and attacks and stuff like that. I watch it all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe half of them or so, I figure a competition blue belt would probably find a way to get him to the ground and probably choke him out for, but there's plenty of times when that kind of stuff is going to get you in trouble.
Right.
And then, so I don't think competition experience necessarily prepares you for self-defense. There's a mentality, there's definitely a mental difference.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to self-defense. One of the things nobody talks about, that, they always talk about multiple opponents and weapons and stuff like that. It's like, where the hell are you? What are you doing that you've made 4 or 5 people mad, and they have what, chains or something? Like they're all pulling out knives and crowbars. Like, what did you do?
Yeah.
You're far less likely to get into that kind of situation than you are just some drunk idiot at Applebee's.
Mm-hmm.
But and then on the other side of it, you have your more hardcore self-defense, kill technique,
Yeah.
right types.
I gotta walk away for a second. I think I unplugged my computer by mistake. Right.
Okay.
Give me 1 sec.
All right.
This bloody hotel room. Okay. I'll be sure to edit that out. The joys of live streaming.
Yeah.
Okay, but
so anyway, that stuff, those type of people, the self-defense people, tend to completely and utterly dismiss any type of sport training whatsoever. It seems to all be about eye gouges and groin kicks and throat punches and knives and everything else. And most of them can't do a pull-up. I don't know why there's that correlation. I don't know if I'm not sure if there's a causation there, but most of them tend to appear to be, it just looks like they don't want to sweat very much. Is
right.
what it comes down to. So the difference, I'm sorry, Dwight, I'm rambling.
No, you know what? I want you to tell me about the process or the procedure at your place. If you have a 5-year-old that at some point develops the ability to glove up and shin up and go be rough and tumble, what's the procedure? How do you take even the little ones from point A to point B? Because I gather that sparring is of the utmost importance at your school across the board.
Yes.
But I gather
Sparring
also
often.
right. I gather also that your approach is not the throw them into the deep end of the pool and they either sink or swim. So how do you what's your progression to get them to that point?
Man, if I took a little bitty one, I imagine that I would just I would train them mostly like normal until maybe the last year or 6 months of their training, because I would want to see what they're good at, what their strengths and weaknesses are. And then what I always tried to do with a fighter was figure out what they're good at
Mm-hmm.
and double and triple down on that. You know, we're and then between that fight and the next fight, hey, we need to work on your submission defense, or we need to work on your footwork, or whatever it is. We need to work on your conditioning, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but for competition, I would say the main difference really, Dwight, is how hard you're going to train. How hard are you going to train? How hard are you going to spar? And, I mean, you need to redline. You need to redline your engine and peak for a fight.
Yeah.
Whereas just regular self-defense training, you're just going to try to stay in as good a shape as you can maintain on a year after year basis.
Yeah.
But
What's
the
the
conditioning is the main factor.
Right. Well, the condition is the main factor for both groups, right?
Right. But there's the contrast. The contrast is most people really have no idea what it takes to get in the kind of condition that you need to be in to fight for 15 minutes.
Right. What's the percentage of your student group that's headed towards competition versus
Zero. Currently zero. I don't teach fighters. Anybody comes to me saying that they want to fight, I send them away nowadays.
But
It
it wasn't
doesn't.
always like that, was it?
No, not at all. No, Rodney and I had a very, very accomplished, very successful fight team.
Yeah. Yeah. What
Headed by
happened?
Rodney. I was the, I think a combination of things. What happened for me personally is I wanted to start making money teaching martial arts. And in my experience, you can either teach fighters or you can make money. In my experience,
Yeah.
it's not everybody's experience or reality, but I would bet you that there are very, very, very few truly lucrative for the head coach, owner, or anybody, honestly, fight gyms
Yeah.
in the United States at the very least. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
But the fighters cost a lot of time and they cost a lot of money. Can we do something? Can we do something about put him outside? Put him out front if we need to. But I don't care what you do with him. I just don't want to hear him bark. But fighters take a lot of time and energy, and they're not. It's not cost effective,
Right.
In my experience.
Right.
And the other thing for me is you eventually grow close to your students, and I really didn't like seeing my guys get beat up. You know, when they would lose a fight, it was just heartbreaking to see them lose.
Yeah.
After they worked so hard, but it was really tough to see them get. You know, if you get a guy get KO'd, or really, really beat up, you know, it's just bound to happen. It's part of it. We had a very successful team, but even the best guys out there,
Yeah.
you know, there's just very, very few. There's no such thing as an undefeated fighter in MMA, right?
Right.
Very, very few of them. So
How did you handle them psychologically if they were defeated?
I mean, that was the tough part, right? Is, you know,
Right.
just letting them know, hey, and all of them are different. This is why it's so time consuming, because every person's different. Some of them mentally were very, very strong. Some of them were very strong, didn't need anything. Hey, good job, you gave it your best, man. You know, I'm a fan either way, right?
Yeah.
And then some of them, many of them, take a loss or two and ended up just falling off. They
Right.
eventually just quit fighting.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much you could do to save them as far as emotional support or whatever. It's such a
Yeah.
difficult thing to get to work that hard and to focus that hard. And if you have a family, you're taking a lot of time away from your family. You have to realize, like, you're working a full-time job, almost certainly.
Hmm.
Um, if you have a family, of course, and you're taking a lot of time away from your family, you're working, and then you're going to train. And then when you're not training with a coach, you're training on your own, and you work really, really long and really hard, and then you get beat up in front of all your friends and all your family.
Yeah.
And that's tough. It's not for everybody.
Right. Oh, right. Let me see what else I brainstormed on while we were over Colorado. Um, you don't have a separate Brazilian Jiu Jitsu class, right?
No,
How come?
I think, well, the job of a fighter, uh, right? If you're a fighter, your job is to go, once upon a time, your job would be to go to all these different disciplines, learn them, get good at them, and then figure out a way to mix them for yourself that worked for you. That's the old way of doing it back in the day. And I think that's kind of detrimental, trying to figure out how to mix the mentality of a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter with anything else, because a Brazilian jiu-jitsu fighter, particularly under BJJ rules, you're comfortable on your back. You should never
Hmm.
be comfortable on your back, right? Even if you have a million submissions from your back, you should never be comfortable on your back. Wrestling, you go learn wrestling, where they're going to teach you to belly down, belly down, belly down, belly down, belly down. Anytime you're in trouble, if you're about to be pinned, belly down. Well, you can't do that in a real fight. Boxing, they'll teach you, of course, they don't address kicks whatsoever, no strikes below the waist at all. You're going to bend over at the waist a lot. In boxing, people talk like you're supposed to drop your hips. You're going to bend over at the waist as a boxer. People do it all the time. Mike Tyson did it. Everybody did it. You're going to bend over at the waist a lot. Not a good idea in a real fight.
Hmm.
And then the footwork thing in general. This is one of the things, if I could digress for just a second, one of the things that got me out of my JKD fanboy mentality was, I realized, I won't tell you how I realized, but I realized that if you get into a fight at the lake, footwork is going to do you very little good.
Hmm.
Right? Maybe you're in ankle deep sand, maybe you're waist deep in water, and here you are in a fight, right? Some teenage kids are out there picking on your daughter, and you wade out there, and instead of saying, "Oh, sorry, sir," they're like, "Nah, screw you, we're going to beat you up." Well, now you're in a fight, waist deep water, and you can try your Bruce Lee impression if you want to, but you really need to know how to
Right.
do something else. So I don't
Yeah.
separate the skills. I flow the skills. Now I have a striking portion of the class, a self-defense portion of the class, and a grappling portion of the class. And
Right.
my job and talent, as it were, is showing you where the striking portion of the class can turn into the hair grab, bear hug, headlock, wild swing, haymaker, self-defense portion of the class
Right.
can then flow right into the grappling portion. We're now on the ground.
Yeah.
You're right. And so that was Rodney's talent. And he, I learned it from him,
Yeah.
flowing you have to separate them, but you also need to blend them. you know.
Right.
So
I was
working it into a real situation.
when you were telling the story about the lake and what have you, you know, waist deep. If you'd ever been in a Sano seminar, sometimes you'll hear him talk about, well, the same thing, exactly what you're talking about. How does your footwork help you if you're in a pool, right?
Yeah.
Because he tells this story about a guy who was like a professional water polo player, right? And so he could take everybody out in that element, come out of the water, right? And people could get him, but in that element. And so Sifu Nasano's message was you have to be capable in different scenarios, right? And that is a pure, Zane, that is a pure, now, I mean, you know that what you just described there is a pure JKD approach. It is having no limitation, and it's having no fixed way. It is covering all your bases. That is a pure JKD approach. It was that deliberate, or that just happened? Um, I mean, was there a point where you sat down and you thought, no, the class should have a striking portion and a self-defense portion and a grappling portion, and they should be seamlessly integrated? Did that just occur, or was there like a thought process behind that, or what?
I stole it from Rodney. That's just how he always
That
taught.
that damn Rodney Hitchcock, right? You and I have been on this show. This is what, 3 or 4 times,
Right.
right? And he just keeps hovering around, hovering, 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 right? Right? What is up with that guy?
He, he and Ted were very alike, and they are both uh, uncomfortable with attention.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Ted was
Well,
very uncomfortable with
you are
attention.
too. You are too. But
I don't
so
particularly care. I can talk. I can speak publicly or whatever, as long as it's something that I'm confident,
right,
talking about.
right.
Um, but yeah, in a way, like, I don't like compliments. Shut up with that. Tell me something I suck at. I'll listen to that all day. But I don't want to hear any kind of compliment. You know.
Yeah,
So
I get it.
I'm uncomfortable with that with it
Well,
sometimes.
no,
But just
but
as long
that's
as I'm talking about something I like talking about,
right.
or something I know about.
Yeah, but that's why I always appreciate your willingness, to spend time with me, just having a conversation. You, you know, um, but so okay, so let's do some JKD stuff, because one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, because at your school, I mean, MMA is in the name of the school, so
Mhm.
obviously there's striking and grappling. What then is your understanding of, so in Bruce Lee's writings, he says that in 65, 66, his Junfan method evolved into JKD with the addition of the full contact sparring with protective gear, which is what you guys do.
Mhm.
So what's your understanding then of that evolution from one thing into this thing called Jeet Kune? Is that all it takes? You just got to start sparring?
I th- yes, I think so. I think sparring would be a bare minimum. Some competition would be great too, because
Uh,
sparring and competition are obviously different. Um, and look, you don't have to take it super seriously. You need to get out there, and if you're the kind of person who wants to see what you're capable of, or whatever, fine. But um, as a coach, either you or your students, you need to go see how it works in reality against someone who's not doing what you're doing. Can I tell you some fines
Yeah.
I've always wanted to talk about it. So I'll tell you some finds that
Mhm.
Rodney and I, um, some epiphanies, whatever you want to call it, some things we found it when our fighters started fighting was that we sparred right lead versus right lead too much. Everybody in the class was right-handed, so everybody fought with their right side forward primarily.
Mhm.
And the one punch that as a southpaw you should never get hit by, we were a sucker for a straight right hand. Our guys were just suckers for it. Just
Yeah.
the striking is striking, and a cross is a cross, and a jab is a jab. And you hear people say that all the time. But when you change the stances, you change the distance, you change the timing, you change the angles a little bit. Um, and we were not accustomed to that. Our guys were not accustomed to that. And I saw more than one talented striker get knocked down by a straight right hand and have to figure it out in the real time, you
Mhm.
know. And so very early on in the competition days, the early competition days, it was, hey, somebody's going to have to bite the bullet. And I called it good guy, bad guy sparring, right? The
Okay.
good guy does whatever he wants. The bad guy stands orthodox and gets his ass kicked. This is what's going to happen, right? Because we
Mhm.
don't we don't train out of the orthodox right-handed lead. So, um, so there was a learning curve there, but it was really interesting because very quickly I turned orthodox. I turned, put my right hand in the back and started sparring that way with all my students because I'm a giver, Dwight. I didn't need to spar for me, right? So every spar I ever did, from that point forward was uh, left side forward, and
Right.
I found immediately that, like, man, everybody suckers for my right hand. It was so, it was like magic. It was like a magic trick.
Huh.
Um, for whatever reason, I could just very easily get myself into position to land my right hand,
Right.
particularly my right overhand, and so I kind of immediately fell in love with switching stances. Um,
Were you part of one of our recent Facebook discussions about the whole right lead thing?
yeah, I chimed in on
Yeah.
something and was
Yeah.
saying basically exactly that once I started switching leads, it effectively doubled my offense. It was like
Right.
it's not like it's not the same as just, oh, you now you have all these weapons from another stance. No, I get like 6 or 8 more moves. I get 6 or 8 more weapons now. I get
Mhm.
entirely new angles that I can move efficiently at.
Mhm.
Um, if I stand southpaw, it's 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 very uncomfortable to slip over your front foot for most people because you're slipping toward the punch and you're not getting a good angle. You're not getting a particularly good angle. You're not getting a 90-degree angle of deflection, like the punch is coming here and you're not moving 90 degrees away from it. I'm moving closer as I come here. It's very
Yeah.
uncomfortable and it's
Yeah.
risky. So against the right hand, uh, I realized that very early on what I said earlier, which is a southpaw should never get hit by the right hand, right? Not you, like they should have to really work to set that thing up because in a southpaw stance, when I slip over my rear foot, I slip 90 degrees. I slip 90 degrees of the cross. All I have is lean over my back foot.
Yeah.
And so once I realized that by switching stances, I could take an entire weapon away very easily. And if I was having trouble with another punch, I could switch back to southpaw, whatever it is.
Right.
Uh, and then just getting to a spot, right? I want to be in this spot over here. Well, if I align my feet in such a way that I'm basically sprinting in that direction, I can get there much faster and more efficiently. If I want to go to the right and I stand southpaw, I sprint to the right. If I want to go to the left and I stand orthodox, I sprint to the left. My feet are lined up like a sprinter, right? So it just opened up, and I just thought, why the hell haven't I been doing this until now? And why doesn't everybody do it? Now my only question is, why doesn't everybody do it? Particularly people practicing JKD.
Well, isn't it because the founder said, you know, because I think because my post was, you know, we were out here a few weeks ago, and Sifu Nasano said, if you're proficient, you're proficient. It doesn't matter what lead you're in. You know, if you're proficient, you're proficient. And that's what I posted. And people were like, well, who are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to the founder of Jeet Kune, or are you going to listen to somebody who says it doesn't matter? But he didn't say it doesn't matter. His context was proficiency is what's important.
Right.
Right? You know,
Right.
Bruce Lee said efficiency is whatever scores. So proficiency is what's important. It's not, well, you know, I gotta be in this lead in order to be proficient. No, you look at both, like you're saying, and there's advantages and disadvantages to both of them. And if proficiency is your goal, like you just said, why isn't everybody doing it?
Right. Right. You see it in the UFC more and more, which I'm so disappointed in the JKD community at large, that they typically are such big boxing fans, but they don't watch MMA. And I've heard various reasons that people say they don't. None of them make any sense to me. I mean, if you just like watching boxing, you don't like watching MMA, that's fine. But God, there's so much to learn by watching a sport that features all of the skills that you are trying to get good at. Right? Like all of the skills that you need in order to be good at what you're trying to be good at are featured in one sport, and it's called mixed martial arts. So I don't know why people aren't. I have theories, but they're not, you know me, Dwight, they're not very nice.
Do you subscribe to the theory that JKD is MMA? Like I mean, people make that statement. Would you agree?
You and I have argued
to what degree?
Dwight.
To what degree would you agree with that, or disagree with it?
I think to a large degree, I would agree that that Jeet Kune that MMA is a sport version of JKD. I think if somebody came to Bruce Lee and said, "Hey, I'll pay you $100 million," or if they put a gun to his head and said, "You're gonna make a fight sport," I think it would look like the UFC.
Well, did you guys ever discuss with Ted Wong what his training sessions? Because we know that Ted Wong sparred with Bruce Lee more than anybody else. So what was the nature of their sparring? Wouldn't it have been more of, I don't know if they put the grappling in, but wouldn't it have been more of a kickboxing approach?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, these are the kind of questions that we would ask Ted. I used to get kind of frustrated at seminars. People would ask him what Bruce Lee's favorite food was or something like that. Like, what was his favorite brand of tennis shoes or something like that?
Yeah, see, so if I was running that seminar, right, you ask that question, and then I send somebody and we escort you out. Okay? We refund you and we ask you politely to not come back. If you did that on Saturday, of a Saturday and Sunday seminar, we don't want you back. I mean, come on, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it was you could see Ted get exasperated a little bit with some of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's why he liked our group, particularly um, particularly our little group that he trained, because we had competitors using the stuff that he was teaching
Right.
in real fights.
Right.
We sparred all the time, so he came to him with problems. Hey, I mean, I remember specifically one problem. We had this Jack Reacher size student, legitimately 6'5", 250 pounds. Was This
Wow.
guy's built
Yeah.
more or less like me. I'm not bragging, okay, but he's built more or less like me, 6'5", and like, Ted, what? Like, how would you hit this guy? You know, like, how would you hit him with a straight lead? You know, and
Yeah.
he kind of chuckled about it. He's like, yeah, that's a problem. You know,
Yeah. Do
and
you enjoy the Jack Reacher series? You like it?
love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I read the first several of the books.
Ah.
Back before I developed such a severe case of what I figure is probably trauma-induced ADD. I can't sit down and read anymore.
Right. What about the other novels turned into TV series, the Jack Ryan and Bosch stuff? You watch those?
No, I don't watch those. I did like the Terminal List.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
I liked it. Jack Carr's. Uh,
Check out Bosch. See if have you heard of it at least?
I have, yeah. I've seen the show. I might have even tried to watch an episode or two. I even have trouble sitting down watching stuff that I want to watch. Honestly,
Ah, yeah.
I just can't. It's really hard for me to sit still.
Okay. We were just making fun when we were checking in. This hotel that we're at, um, season 3 of Bosch Legacy, which is the second series, um, they actually had an episode that this, not the hotel, but the marina where we are, featured prominently in it. You know, so I was watching, I was like, damn, I know exactly where that is. I felt like I was Hollywood.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I met Michael Jai White my one time in Los Angeles. I met Michael Jai White in
Did
the
you
hotel
really?
lobby. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah.
man. Yeah, I did
Yeah,
movie
really
with him.
interesting. Yeah, I remember that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. He.
really interesting. I was talking to him about I met him while I was visiting for the seminar there in Monterey Park, I believe it was, somewhere at like a mall or something. I'm trying to remember, but anyway, I think it was like 2010. It was right after Ted had died, like just a few months after Ted had passed.
Mhm.
And anyway, told him what I was there for, and his eyes perked up. He's like, "Really? That's really interesting. You know, tell me, who is it? Tell me about it a little bit." Well, um, so next thing you know, in the hotel lobby, I'm like holding court for for Michael Jai White, telling him about the straight lead and telling him about Ted
Right.
Wong and telling him about
Yeah.
the footwork and stuff. And he either was such a warm and friendly guy that he made me think he was genuinely interested, or he was genuinely
Right.
interested. I'm not quite sure which, but
Well,
uh,
it is LA. It is Hollywood. You never know with these people.
right,
Right?
right.
You
I'm
know?
sure the nicest ones that are probably genuinely started out as a genuinely nice guy. They're
Yeah.
probably very disillusioned after
Hey
just a
man,
few years.
even when I'm on the plane and I'm watching people board the aircraft, like I'm looking at them and I'm thinking, okay, like political views, right? I'm like, okay, that one's this, that one's this, that one's this, that one's this,
Right, right, right,
because it's California, man. So there,
right.
there's
Oh
there's a
man, there must
there's a
be.
vibe here,
Oh yeah, the blue hair and the mask. Yeah,
and the nose rings,
yeah. Come on, man.
right?
You don't have to do that. Just tell me you voted for Joe Biden. It's fine. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. It's whatever. You get a vote.
Yeah.
Use
All
it how
right.
you
Let
want.
me let me check
Let's
my
get on that hook.
let me check my notes again here. Um, Attribute training. So speed, power, um, mobility, agility, flexibility, timing, these things. Um, Specific training methods for these things, or is it just built into technique training?
I would say that in in class time, I have always felt very similarly to how Rodney did, which is you're paying me to teach you how to fight, not tell you to do push-ups.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be more effective at this stuff, you need to get as fit and strong as you can. I do lead a warm up generally, which consists of just standard calisthenic exercises like jumping jacks, push ups, sit ups, stuff like that.
Right.
But it's a pretty brief warm up, until everybody just gets a little sweat going, and then the uh, round of first round of drills. I usually make a point to tell everybody, nice and easy, everybody. Let's continue getting warmed up with some skills, and you know, after a few rounds, everybody's dripping sweat and etc. The only thing that I will work into class usually at the end of the maybe middle to end of the striking portion is flexibility training.
Uh-huh.
Um, I lead a kind of a class on flexibility, dynamic stretching, and yoga type stretching, and talk to them about how um, a strong muscle is a flexible muscle and vice versa, and about strengthening all the little hip flexor muscles and stuff like that in order to make them feel confident enough that everything can loosen up and you can be more
Right.
flexible, and et cetera, et
Right.
cetera. So I do a little bit of that, but no, I don't go into a big strength and conditioning program or anything during the class, because I just feel like, man, you could go join Planet Fitness and pay somebody a lot less money,
Yeah.
you know.
Is there what I call my friend Gianfini Joseph? I got this from him. Is there a through line? So like in class, like so you said, there's this the sparring portion, there's the grappling portion, there's the striking portion, there's the self defense portion, there's the grappling portion. Is there a through line? So like the striking portion, the techniques that are trained there cross over into the self defense portion and then cross over again into the grappling portion?
As often as possible, yes.
Ah,
Yeah, as often as possible. I will take, uh, we've been doing a striking combo of whatever kind. Well, today's self defense position happens to be, a side headlock, right? So we're doing this striking combination, and this person um, does the one of the combos of the day during the if we have a combo of the day. Sometimes we don't. I have a little bit of an issue with the combo of the day, but uh, but here at this last hook that this person is going to throw, they're actually going to miss. You're going to step in a little bit, or perhaps they're going to step in too far, and they're oopsie daisy. They're going to grab you and put you in a headlock. Right? They just happen
right,
to miss. They hit the head with the bicep, and they say, "Aha, gotcha!" Right?
right,
And so now we're in our self defense portion, and then whatever the position happens to be, say it's mount. Well, this person ends up taking you down. We'll do all these defenses from the headlock, and then it may be, depending on if it's an offense or a defense day, it may be that you take them down and mount them and do an offensive technique from mount,
right,
or it may be that they end up successfully taking you down with the headlock and they mount you, and now it's your job to escape. um, I think that's very important to go through how a fight might actually happen. And the amazing part about it is when you watch the UFC on a regular basis, you watch MMA on a regular basis, you'll get a really good idea at where these positions lead, even
mm-hmm.
striking positions.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, from this distance, this is what these people are going to be looking to throw.
Yeah.
at this distance, this angle, you're against the cage, right? You might be against a Chevy, you might be against a building, you might
Right.
be against whatever it is, a retaining wall, and
Yeah.
here you are, you have a barrier. Well, now your problem is you can't go backward. You can create no more space unless you move laterally, right? So let's look
You-
at some ways to look laterally.
Yes.
This is where your changing stances comes in.
You know,
So
we call it in Filipino Kali, we call that the environmental training.
interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very important. You've got to, I have a whole series putting somebody against a barrier
Right.
and beating them up and taking them down from there if that's what you want to do, or being
Right.
put against a barrier, um, striking if you need to get to a good position, wrist grabs, underhooks, collar ties, head position, etc. Reversing the position if you want to and starting to attack, or just getting free and getting out in space where you can fight or run away or whatever. But all
How
that stuff's
how
very important.
how is that stuff organized? Did you say that sometimes it's a defensive day or a offensive day or combo of the day? What are the different types of days that you have?
Yeah, I would say I could break it up very basically as I go through cycles where I work on different um, skill sets, so to speak. You and
Mhm.
I have talked about the basic skill sets that you need for fighting, right? You need kicking, you need kicking, you need punching, you need clinching, you need wrestling, you need etc.
Listen. So, did you see my post? It was another Inasano quote, right? It was taken from a magazine article, and it said something like, "To be to be to be effective, I think you need a good striking game or a good stand-up game. You need a good off-balancing game. You need a good ground game. You need a good weapons game. You need a something else game, right?"
I remember that.
And
Yeah.
and one person could not bring himself to agree that this makes sense. And so he said, "Well, it's not a game." So, so I patiently pointed out that probably over the past 30 years in the martial art world, the word game does not mean a thing you do for fun with it. The game does not mean Monopoly, right? But he just couldn't bring himself to agree that Dan Inosanto said something that made sense.
You know, can't win them all, can we, Dwight?
Oh man, it's so much
You're
fun.
about as pleasant a person as I know. Anybody
Because
got, you're one of these people, Dwight. If you really got a problem with Dwight Woods, you got a problem with me.
it it it
And you
it
just have a problem, really.
well, I mean, a guy accused me the other day of getting him kicked off of a group, and I'm like, are you aware of the concept called your reputation precedes you? I mean, precedes you, right? I mean, like oblivious, completely oblivious. And the truth is, all I did when he came on, I said, you have a way of doing things. So I hope that the moderators over here keep an eye on you because the moderators are my friends, right? So I'm
Yeah.
like, I hope the moderators keep an eye on you. Next thing you know, he's cussing me out for getting him thrown out of another group. Like if I wake up to check to see what is going on Facebook. I mean, come on, right? Facebook is free. So what does that mean? It means we are not the clients of Facebook, right? Because it's free. So why should we take it so seriously? And why are we
Right.
taking it seriously, Zane? A guy died prematurely and in death because of the field that he was in, became an international superstar. And now I'm going to challenge you because your influence is more Ted Wong than it is Dan Inosanto. So I have to have it in for you. That is the shittiest way that anybody could ever think and try to live.
I agree. And
You
it's
know?
not the really the saddest part is how completely independent it is of any way I've ever heard Dan Inosanto speak or Ted Wong speak.
Yeah. But
Ted never had
here's the other
anything
thing.
bad to say about anybody that I
Right.
ever heard.
But here's the thing, right? When you get hit in the face, how important is it?
How important is your lineage?
Yeah. Yeah. If you get hit in the face, right? You go, you know, I should probably switch.
I better switch leads.
It's too goddamn late. You already got hit,
Yeah.
right? You know,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
mean,
and that I I would like to clarify that that's been the goal for me the whole time. That's why I don't have much loyalty to anything other than effectiveness. I have
right,
no loyalty to anything other than effectiveness. And if somebody tells me that whatever it is I'm doing or saying or thinking or whatever my opinion is
mhm,
not JKD, I could not possibly care less if it is JKD, if it is or is not, in fact, JKD.
yeah,
Definitely couldn't care less about your opinion about it.
yeah,
But uh, all I can do is say Jeet Kune through Rodney and Ted Wong and Bruce Lee, whatever I've been able to consume from those people, has informed my learning process the whole way.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
what Rodney did for me in particular was teach me how to learn, teach me what questions to ask
right,
about anything I see and to run everything through a
right,
filter,
right,
right?
yeah,
I've heard people say, I've heard people call it a Jeet Kune filter.
yeah.
It is whatever it is. It's a bullshit filter. I don't know what it is. It's a
You
bullshito
want to
filter.
you want to hear something funny? I asked
Sure.
Cass Magda one time, "What's the most important thing you learned from Inosanto?" You know what he said?
What?
Learning how to learn. Yeah,
That's it. That's it.
yeah. Look
Yeah.
at that, right?
Just looking at, just keeping an open mind long. And there's been plenty of things over the years that I was completely closed minded to until I thought about it, saw it a little bit more, or whatever. You're going to love this, Dwight. As many times as we have lovingly debated each other on trapping, I'm developing a trapping series. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
developing a trapping series that I'm working into the curriculum because um, things like Pak Sao, post stiff arming someone, just grabbing their wrist,
mhm,
particularly in opposite leads. If you're not smacking that lead hand out of the way in opposite leads, if you're not grabbing it, slapping it out of the way, um, you, first of all, you are.
right,
Period. If you're effective at all, you are. You have
right.
to deal with that stupid hand that's in front of you. It's right
Yeah,
in the way of your main weapon. Um, so instead of pretend otherwise, like, well, no, let's just systemize it. And
mhm,
I don't like drills. I don't particularly like trapping drills where I do this and you do this and I do this and you do this and I do this and you do this and it's all planned out like that.
right,
Um, I think it's all just way too dynamic and way too chaotic to go through a thing where I do this and then you parry it and I knock that out of the way. And that's never worked in the history of ever.
Yeah.
But slapping somebody's hand out of the way and punching them in the face is fun and easy. So
Hey, did Jorge
let's train it.
Masvidal's experience have anything to do with this?
No, no, but yes.
Right.
No, but yes, right?
Yeah.
So there's been tons and tons and tons of these instances. Uh, Israel Adesanya used a lopsow on Alex Bejeda to KO him.
Right.
Not long ago, there was a literal grabbing of the wrist into a jump knee that KO'd a guy. The guy grabbed his wrist, and there's several different energies you can give, right? You grab my wrist, I can pull it away, I can leave it loose and limp, or I can kind of frame and push into you with it while you're grabbing my wrist. Well, that's what the guy did.
Mm-hmm.
So the other guy used that as kind of a measuring tool to measure his energy always coming toward me, all gas, no brake. So he let him eat, right? Jumped up, kneed him in the face, and got a KO off of it.
Right.
So this stuff is working, and I've always used it. I've just refused to call it trapping. Because when I think trapping, I think of Wing Chun. What I think of is Wing Chun nonsense, stuff that's never worked ever. It's trained in a way that's not practical at all.
In all fairness to them, right? What happened was they put the sequence. So let's say there's like a 4-move trapping sequence. It unfortunately, the sequences became more popular than the individual movements. Right? So it was really just a way of practicing the individual movements over and over again, but not singly.
Right.
You see?
Right.
But
so you
but
started
then,
out with a Pak Sao, and then
right.
you go to a Lop Sao, and then a Jut Sao, and a whatever, all in the same little
Right.
drill or whatever.
Yeah. So one drill for 4 techniques rather than 4 drills for one technique. So it's kind of like a time saving measure. But they were so cool looking, they took over.
They took over everything, and now there's no practicality left.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, unfortunately, on down the line, people mistake that for actual fighting. Right. People mistake that for what might actually happen in a fight and what they would be capable of doing in a fight if someone, right, came at them. And for whatever reason, they're not able to. Well, let's be honest. It's because they don't spar. Right? It's because they don't spar. It's because they don't compete. Even if you spar, well, if everyone in your class is going to spar you this way, well, then all this stuff might come in handy. But the minute somebody ducks off line and hits you with an overhand, that's going to make you think differently. So you've got to get outside your own school. You've got to get outside your own academy. You've got to go to at the very least, go spar at a boxing gym or a Muay Thai gym or something like that and see what other people are doing and see what the practicality is of what it is you're doing.
Well, I imagine when Bruce Lee announced the moving away from that Wing Chun type thing, because he said that it was the addition of the full contact protective gear and the sparring that moved him away from the Wing Chun element. And that's how he ends up right into somebody and saying Chi Sao is out. Yeah, because you can't, that Wing Chun sparring was no longer for him a realistic way of approaching things. Right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, see, look, Zane, all you're doing, in my opinion, is continuing the tradition. That's all you guys are doing. And again, I don't understand But look, you know what? Let's wrap it up and let me just say this again. You are one of my most favorite people to talk Jeet Kune with because we end up not talking Jeet Kune.
Well, I agree. Those are the most interesting conversations anyway. You know, that's why this long form podcast thing is taking off anyway, because it's not such a contrived and controlled thing. It's just a couple of guys having a conversation.
Right. Yeah.
It's always more interesting to me anyway, that way.
I mean, you know, if we had time, but I got to start wrapping up because we got to go do Sifu Dan's 5:30 class. But yeah, I mean, if I could, I'd stay on here and convince you to watch Bosch. You know, right? What about The Lincoln Lawyer? You watch that one?
No.
Because that's another whose book series is that? The guy, the lawyer guy that did all his books have been turned into movies. Oh gosh, I can't believe I can't remember.
Okay. He wrote all these. Like, is that one of them?
Or like Mississippi Burning or all that stuff.
Okay.
Yeah, you know who I mean, right?
Yeah, now I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyhow, my friend, right? Always a pleasure to hang out with you, man.
Yeah, absolutely, Dwight. Always a pleasure, man. Anytime I'm able to get on chat and talk to you, I do this without an audience. I don't care about anybody watching it. I just want to talk to my buddy.
All right, man. Okay. Well, so we'll make sure to tease Rodney Hitchcock that once again you and I got together and his name came up all the time and nobody even knows what he looks like.
Nobody even knows what he looks like, and that's a shame. That's a shame. That guy's an encyclopedia. Of martial arts knowledge. Came to Ted Wong with a ton of very wide scope of martial arts knowledge. So he always brought that to the table.
Would he say that he came to Ted with a wide scope and Ted enabled him to go deep?
Oh yeah. Very much. Yeah, I remember him explaining how he's like, man, all these years, like I thought I knew how to throw a punch.
Right.
You know, I thought I knew how to move my feet. You know, my coach would just tell me like, man, you need to be lighter on your feet, move your feet. Right. Ted Wong didn't tell you to do it. He told you how to do it. Right. These are the steps. These are the drills.
Right.
So he put the engineering, the physics to what Rodney had been doing all those years and just changed his life, changed the way he looked at everything. It's pretty cool.
Nice. All right, my friend, you take care and we'll do this again another time. All right.
All right. See you, Dwight. Take care.
Okay, man. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Always great fun to hang out with Zane. Right. He's on Facebook. Just look up Zane Isaacs. Zane Isaacs Championship MMA. And see, I'm telling you, right? The more you keep yourself open to this type of stuff, the more you can benefit from it, right? So you guys be sure to, let's see, where am I? I'm in town. I'm back home next Friday. So we'll be able to do something. And if you're interested in this stuff, you know that at paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami, paypal.me/UnifiedMA Miami. That's where you can pick up the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1, raw but edited. And I'll tell you a little insight. I was asked by my good friend Michael Marcellus Brown when I was going to do a second book. And while I was on the plane, I brought 2 sets of reading material. And so I'm on the plane and I'm reading and I'm getting the idea for the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 2. So I don't want to promise anything. It's not like it's going to be ready in 2 weeks or what have you, but I did start thinking about the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 2, right? You can also support the show over at jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Care link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. The JKD Notables t-shirt available, also as a sweatshirt, hoodie, kitchen tool, and what have you. Remember that next year I almost said here in Miami, next year out east in Miami, Titans of JKD4 with Cass Magda and Chris Kent. Website coming up and what have you. Another, I don't have a graphic, an image for it, but we are also, you know what, let me see if I can grab it quickly. Give me 1 second. If I brought the files with me, I might be able to pull this up. Give me a sec. Yep, there we go. So this is the working model. I'll have it done in a little bit. The flyer for our August 17th and 18th TCF, the System Seminar with G. Anthony and Mrs. Joseph. This will definitely, all the information for this will definitely be out by the end of next week, right? So this is August 17th and 18th. You guys know who G. Anthony is. He's been on the show with me a number of times now. We're here. We're going to go train with Sifu Dan tonight. Then we go into the valley. We train with Cass Magda Saturday and Sunday. And then we head down south to G's place and we train with him Sunday night. Then we wake up, we train Monday morning, and then we come back to Marina Del Rey and we train with Inosano again. So the three musketeers, me and Ron and Doc, we keep ourselves busy and we keep ourselves out of trouble when we're here. But this is definitely something that I think all JKD people would benefit from. So keep your eyes and ears attuned for this. I'll put it up as a Facebook event. And if I can, I might make a little web page for it as well, either on its own or off the JKD Rebel website. And last but not least, if you're over on the YouTube, you can become a paid subscriber to the channel. Just click on the join link and you'll see the different levels of membership available to you there. And that is about it. I got to get myself in gear. We got to leave here in like 20 minutes or so, right? So until the next episode, you guys enjoy your weekend. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. Take care. Talk soon. Rocking and rolling.